Welcome to the HR Empowerment Podcast, where we will uncover strategies and new insights from HR professionals who discuss up-to-date regulations, best practices, and the most pressing topics like diversity and equity, leadership, dealing with difficult situations, and much more that affect your bottom line and business. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, everybody. Wendy Sellers here, the HR lady. I am back with my co-host, JC. Hey, JC.
Hi there.
And another very special attendee, Ari Guns. How you doing, Ari?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Hey, we dropped at the end of the episode 3 talking about your book, The Little Book of Greatness. I want to ask you about some other things too, such as, Breaking Boards and a few other books that you have written. Tell us, first of all, how the heck do you have any time to do this since you're traveling all over the place? And what's your motivation behind this?
So as far as having time to do it, I have no idea. Like, I'm trying to figure out which book I should be focusing on most right now. Like, I had this idea for doing a book that was like all like meditations, poems, and writings from the great outdoors, along with pictures that I took while I was doing a lot of these writings, meditations, and thoughts. But that idea has kind of jumped out a little bit and kind of like moved into like maybe like develop a specific program and idea as well and this way, like, it has kind of a little bit of everything for everybody. So I'm kind of like cogitating on that idea right now, but I continue to write little pieces when I'm in the outdoors. Like when I was in Yosemite last week, I definitely wrote a little piece. I have another piece I want to write as well, constantly just thinking of that book. But I do have 4 kids books that are out. And so and another one that's on the way, like it's currently in the artwork stage and whatnot.
Nice. Congratulations.
The artwork is gorgeous. So the first one started off basically like, I don't know exactly what it was. Like I was goofing off one day. My kids were sitting, I don't know if I had 2 or 3 kids at the time. I have 4 now, but I'm saying we were sitting in the living room. Like I was like goofing off. It was a little bit of a lazy day. And I think the kids were eating like pirate's booty or some other type of like cheddar popcorn or something like that. And like literally just throwing it all over the floor and stuff, like they were little at the time. And so I just started writing this thing like, about Cheddar Monster or whatever. Like, and I came up with this like 5-part poem basically, or 5-part song about like cheese monsters and stuff like that, And so I was like, and I was like doing it with my daughter also, like she was like, contributing a little bit. So I was like, okay, let me give her like a writing credit. Why not? So I put her down as one of the authors on the book, sent it off to one of my sister's friends to get her to do some artwork for it. And boom, book number 1 was born. Book number 2 was, so that's Cheese Monsters. Book number 2, well, I'll just try to go quick, but book number 2 was, I was laying down with my daughter, she's now 6, but she was, 3, 4 at the time during COVID. And I'm kind of like telling her, like, okay, yeah, we're in this really difficult moment. We can't go outside. We can't see people. We can't be near people. Like everybody's separate from each other. We have to put on masks if we need to go. And like everything's different right now, but someday soon, everything's going to be back to normal. Someday soon, everything's going to be back the way things were before. And so I was putting her to bed and I kind of like rolled over and just wrote this whole thing out on my phone, like done. I went and found some illustrations that would work for it, put the whole thing together. And like, that was the Someday Soon book. Coronavirus Brave was a similar type situation. Like I just wrote this whole thing because I was trying to bridge the gap because there were vehemently different opinions on what you should do and shouldn't do for coronavirus. And so the goal of that was, and it didn't quite work, but we were getting ready to go back into the school year. And the goal of it is that kids should hopefully be able to understand that my family is doing this, your family is doing that, and we really don't know. So we don't really know which one is right. And so the fact that you're doing that is not a bad thing. And the fact that we're doing this is not a bad thing, right? Like we don't really know where it's really at yet. And that was the goal of that was to bridge the gap. It didn't make it very, very big. As you know, like there's millions of books published every single year in the US. And so it did not take off quite as much as I had hoped. And then the third one was my wife was running around the house one time being like, nobody cares. Nobody cares. And I'm like, so I started just writing like this whole kind of like Dr. Seuss-esque type thing and everything. Nobody cares if you're this and nobody cares if you're that. Because like really, like a lot of us, we grow up and we're younger and we think that everybody out there cares so much about what we're doing. I don't know if I can do this. What if somebody sees me? right? And as teenagers in high school, people do care a lot, but like as you start to move away from that world, nobody freaking cares. They're so busy with their own stuff going on.
Yep.
They've got their kids, they've got their doctor's appointments, they've got their appointments they've got their meetings, their sales quota, they've got their HR documents to put up. I mean, they've got so many things going on that, like, unless it's like something egregious or something that is like prohibited by law or something that is prohibited by HR policy, literally, nobody cares if you're wearing your hair to the left or to the right today. If I mean, like I was in a plane a couple of days ago and I saw a flight attendant that was massively tattooed, all up and down the arms, all up and down the neck and everything. And I was thinking, I was like, really, like we live in a different world now. I'm saying 30, 40 years ago, no airline would have ever had a flight attendant looking like that. I don't think. Mm-hmm. Nowadays, like, who cares?
Right.
Meaning the world has kind of like shifted a little bit and tattoos are no big deal anymore. So like, nobody cares. Like, okay, he's got tattoos, big deal, whatever. Like a giant skull in his, like, nobody cares. Like, he's being nice, he's being friendly. Like, literally nobody cares. If he wasn't being nice, like, okay, maybe it's a problem, but nobody cares.
Yeah.
And that's the goal behind that one.
That's awesome. I love it. I'm going to check into all of these books. They're available on your website and then also on Amazon too. Before we wrap up this episode, that's where I have my book as well. Amazon makes it quite easy for you to publish and distribute books.
Yeah.
So thank you, Amazon. But, it was funny. I was just saying yesterday or the day before, kind of on the same thing about nobody cares. I was, planning out some social media posts and I said, hey, nobody wants to work anymore. And then I go ... for you. Nobody wants to work anymore for crappy pay. Nobody wants to work anymore for managers who don't care about them. Nobody wants to work for companies who don't care about the managers and then blame the managers for everything. So it's like the same thing of nobody cares, nobody wants to work. And it's like, no. There's a lot more behind this. And that's kind of what we're here to talk about, on this podcast series is the fact that so many people across the world are unengaged because we stopped caring about people. And maybe some companies never really did, but they might have just said, hey, this is your benefits. This is your compensation. Do what I say, not as I do. And we have to start being those people again that says, I care about my employees like I would somebody in my family that I like.
Well, yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was going to say, it's all about building that people first culture. Focusing on employees' well-being or implementing strategies to prevent burnout because you're focused on the actual people, the actual humans,
right.
Not so much the fact that they part their hair a certain way or the tattoo or what they're wearing or their cologne, but the human behind it.
Yeah, I 100% agree.
Companies they may not recognize it yet, but companies are people, not factories, but they're places for people, right? So way back when, like, let's go back Industrial Revolution time, right? There were 100 people looking to take that same job that you could train the person to do the job in 5 minutes, right? Pick this up over here, put it down over here. And that's all you have to do all day long, 12 hours a day. And you get your, $5 a week or whatever. But nowadays it's the people being fully and totally engaged, buying in 100% on what your goal is and making sure that everything is exactly what you want it to be. That's what's going to make your company successful. Not checking off all the HR boxes. Oh, well, okay, fine. We have health benefits. Okay. Here's this type of thing. But if it's not really what people want, then it's not going to create those engaged employees that are really helping your company excel and become the next best thing since sliced bread.
Yeah, 100. That's a great way to wrap this up. JC, you just mentioned it a little bit about a people first culture. And so that's what I want to talk about in episode 4 coming up of boosting employee engagement and connection is talking about episode 5, I'm sorry, building a people first culture and how you can do that with someone like Ari or someone like myself. And there's so many other peers that we'd be more than happy to recommend to you. So we'll be back in a moment.
Thank you for joining the HR Empowerment Podcast, brought to you by Aurora Training Advantage. We hope you've gained new insight and strategies to navigate the HR profession. We look forward to you joining us again on the HR Empowerment Podcast.